Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, now we will discuss about reduced inequality. It is goal number 10. To reduce inequality within and among countries, it's an old story. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The divide has never been starker. We can and must adopt policies that create opportunity for everyone regardless of who they are or where they come from. Income inequality is a global problem that requires global solutions. That means improving the regulation of financial markets and institutions, sending development aid where it is most needed, and helping people migrate safely so they can pursue opportunities together. We can now change the direction of the old story of inequality. So, when I was talking in a class, I told you before that there must be economic justice in the society, there must be social justice in the society, and there must be follow rule of law in order to provide equality to both poor and rich people in a society. So reduced inequality is actually goal number 10, and it can play also an important role in 193 countries. The next goal is sustainable cities and communities. Sustainable cities and communities it makes cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. If you are like most people, you live in a city. More than half the world's population now lives in cities, and that figure will go to about 2/3 of humanity by the year 2050. Cities are getting bigger and bigger. In 1990, there were 10 megacities with 10 million inhabitants or more. In 2014, there were 28 megacities home to 453 million people. Incredible. It is incredible. A lot of people love cities. They are centers of culture and business and life. The thing is, they are also often centers of extreme poverty. To make cities sustainable for all, we can create good affordable public housing. We can upgrade slum settlements. We can invest in public transport, create green spaces, and get a broader range of people involved in urban planning decisions. That way we can keep the things we love about cities and change the things we don't. As I told you before in my previous class, that sustainable cities and communities can play an important role in sustainable development goals. As in Pakistan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan also announced that the Prime Minister will make 50,000 houses. So from the initial phase to province wise, they will make these houses, and these are also the goals of the sustainable developments, and the international community are working on it. The policy was not made by the Prime Minister, if he is announcing again and again. So these sustainable cities will provide safe and clean environment to their people, and these sustainable cities will create a slum-free environment in a community. Slum those people who live in a poor house that is made of cloths, that is called slum or slum. Those people who are living not in concrete houses. So sustainable cities and communities can play an important role as well. Then we study about responsible consumption and production, which is goal number 12. To ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, some people use a lot of stuff and some people use very little. Again, I will tell you that some people are rich, so they buy more things. If you see in Saudi Arabia, mostly people have much of stuffs in their lunch or dinner, but they eat very little from it. And some of the people in South Africa and in sub-Saharan African countries, they don't even have a single bite of bread for them. So in fact, a big share of the world population is consuming too little to meet even their basic needs. Instead, we can have a world where everybody gets what they need to survive and thrive. And we can consume in a way that preserves our natural resources so that our children can enjoy them and their children after that. The hard part is how to achieve that goal. We can manage our natural resources more efficiently and dispose of toxic waste better. If we cut per capita food waste in half globally, get businesses and consumers to reduce and recycle waste, and help countries that have typically not consumed a lot to move towards more responsible consumption patterns. Again, if we contribute in sub-Saharan countries and the developed countries, they contribute in developing countries and give them more to consume, so the poverty can be reduced. The goal number 13 is based on climate action. Student, as you are hearing from the last few years that climate change has more effect on our environmental pollutions and or in our society. So to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts, every country in the world is seeing the drastic efforts of climate change, some more than others. On average, the annual losses just from earthquake, tsunamis, tropical cyclones and flooding count in the hundreds of billions of dollars. We can reduce the loss of life and property by helping more vulnerable regions such as landlocked countries and island states become more resilient. It is still possible with the political will and technological measures to limit the increase in global mean temperature to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and thus avoid the worst effect of climate change. The Sustainable Development Goals lay out a way for countries to work together to meet this urgent challenge. Goal number 14 is based on life below water. It conserve and sustainability use the oceans, seas and marine resources for sustainable development. The ocean make human life possible. Their temperature, their chemistry, their currents, their life forms. For one thing, more than 3 billion people depend on marine and coastal diversity for their livelihoods. But today we are seeing nearly a third of the world's fish stock overexploited. That's not a sustainable way of life. Even people who live nowhere near the ocean can't live without it. Oceans absorb about 30% of carbon dioxide that humans produce. But we are producing more carbon dioxide than ever before, and that makes the ocean more acidic. So 26% more since the start of the Industrial Revolution. Our trash doesn't help either. 13,000 species or 13,000 pieces of plastic litter on every square kilometer of ocean. Sounds bad, right? Don't despair. The Sustainable Development Goals indicate targets for managing and protecting life below water. So life below water is also very important in order to sustain the life of the species below water. So goal number 15 is based on life on land. So life on land is also one of the important factors to protect, restore and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainability, manage forests, combat desertification, and halt reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. As you know, humans and other animals rely on other forms of life on land for food, clean air, clean water, and as a means of combating climate change. Plant life makes 80% of the human diet. Forests, which cover 30% of the Earth's surface, help keep the air and water clean and the Earth's climate in balance. That's not to mention they are home to millions of animal species, but the land and life on it are in trouble. Arable land is disappearing 30 to 35 times faster than it has historically. Deserts are spreading, animal breeds are going extinct. We can turn these trends around. Fortunately, the Sustainable Development Goals aims to conserve and restore the use of terrestrial ecosystems such as forests, wetlands, drylands, and mountains by 2030. The goal number 16 is based on peace, justice, and strong institutions. To promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. How can a country develop? How can people eat, teach, and learn and work and raise families without peace? Peace is very important in every region, especially if you have seen in Afghanistan and Pakistan, there were a lot of insurgency from the last 4 decades. So, how can a country have peace without justice, without human rights, without government based on the rule of law? Some parts of the world enjoy relative peace and justice and may come to take it for granted. Other parts seem to be plagued by armed conflict, crime, torture, and exploitation, all of which hinders their development. The goal of peace and justice is one for all countries to strive towards sustainable development goals aimed